Hey guys, it's Brett. Thanks for stopping by my channel. So I had this whole post I started yesterday, which is basically what I'm going to be doing today. But I sat down, started to film, and suddenly I just, for whatever reason, completely crapped out, bottomed out. It was like, I have no interest doing this. I think it's been rainy here in Los Angeles, the impending elections, which are happening today in the US, as well as just feeling exhausted. So I am feeling better today and coming at you with some book mail, as well as some other things. So let's get started before I decide to scrap this as well. All right, so first I want to say a big congratulations to Suzette Mayr, who won the Scotiabank Giller Prize, the Sleeping Car Porter, 2 nights ago in Canada. I'm really excited to read this, so congratulations to her. Moving on, really quickly, I wanted to talk about what I'm currently reading, what I'm still currently reading, I should say, because I feel like I've been reading both of them forever. The first is Demon Copperfield, which is as fantastic as everybody says it is. I started this on audio because I gave my original copy of this away. So I was waiting for my other copy that I was getting through Parnassus Books to arrive. And in the meantime, I thought, I've got to get this thing started. So I started listening to it. And the narrator is doing an incredible job. That said, you know, this sucker clocks in at almost 550 pages. So I'm not in the car I'm not just in the car that much. So now that I have the book, I'm going to speed this along, but it really is terrific. Absolutely, this will be in my top 10 for the year, if not my top 5. It's really great. The other thing that I feel like I've been reading forever, hello, massive, 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 is Mariana Enriquez, Our Share of Night. This is the gorgeous Waterstones edition. I have been reading this on my Kindle, the Hogarth edition, which is coming out in the States, I believe in February, but this is already out in London. It is epic. It's, again, very engaging. I'm really enjoying it. I don't find it it's not so compelling though that I have to like get through it, which is why I am still slogging through probably 10 days later. But again, this is something I plan to finally finish this week, and perhaps I'll come on with a more thorough review of it. The last thing that I've been reading, and some of you were probably like, well, if you weren't reading so many things at once, maybe you'd finish one. And I would say you are not wrong, is The Haunting of Haji Hotak, which is one of the books that has been shortlisted for the National Book Award. This is only the second book I've read from that list, and certainly I'm not going to get through the shortlist. I have all the shortlist. Oddly, they're the ones that seem the most interesting to me, and I picked them out when they announced the long list. This is fantastic. I thought I was going to finish it last night, but alas, I fell asleep. So, highly recommend this book. This is a series of short stories that many of them are linked, all set in and around Afghanistan, with some of them are set in America. I've never read anything by him before. He is exceptionally talented. The way he tells a story is just brilliant. Each short story, look, I don't love short stories. I love his short stories. Each one immediately grabs you. It's so creative, the way that he goes into these stories. And again, perhaps I'll do a larger review later, but again, absolutely will be on my top 10 of the year. Fantastic book. I would highly encourage you to get this. So, and you know, I haven't read the rest of them, but things I'm hearing, like he really could win the National Book Award. So there you go. All right, so the other thing then I wanted to go over was book mail that I've recently gotten, and I wanted to go over book mail that I've recently gotten. recently got. I started yesterday with a huge pile, and that's, I think, one of the things that said I just quit and was like, I can't do all this. So I pared it down because, you know what? I don't need to talk about books that I'm not so crazy excited about, and you don't need to hear about that. So I've pared it down to about 8 or 9 books that I find interesting. Hopefully you will too. Some of them, I'm sure you're aware, that are out. Why wouldn't you? You people like to read. So the first is Liberation Day by George Saunders. I'm a big fan of George Saunders. I love Lincoln and the Bardo. I love The 10th of December. Last year, this is a series of short stories, all with a little bit of, I think they said, a little bit of a complexities of our increasingly troubled world. Last year, Saunders wrote this book, A Swim of the Pond in the Rain. I don't know if any of you have read this, but hello, great selection for nonfiction November. Also, let's take a moment to say, does this cover look like a skull to anybody else? Like mouth, eyes, it looks like a skull. But what this is Saunders teaches a class at Syracuse University in Russian literature, the Russian short story. This is that course. He takes you through a series of short stories, all of which are fantastic, and then breaks them down. And the net result is you really begin to think about what the author's intention is, things that I personally have never thought about when going into a story. I would highly recommend it. It's very accessible. It's not like some dry academic tome at all. Really, really, really great. And yeah, I would highly encourage you to get this. One of the books that I'm most excited about and I have at the top of this list, and I've seen nowhere, is Kevin Chen's Ghost Town, which has been translated by Daryl Stirk. And he, I guess the translator specializes in Taiwanese literature. This story is kind of told in flashbacks about a young man who grew up in a very kind of conservative, to very conservative Taiwanese parents. And at the beginning, he has just gotten out of prison for killing his boyfriend. And the story kind of goes back and forth in terms of what happened and why. All of it sounds really fascinating, really interesting. It's gotten great reviews. I think it's been on the New York Times as one of their books they were most excited about for the fall. So haven't seen this anywhere, but check it out. I think it looks great. This was courtesy of MCD Books, who is always very nice to me. The Hollow Kind by Andy Davidson. First of all, I think this is such an amazing cover. This is straight up gothic horror. Don't know anything else besides that, except I think it's a haunted house. It would have been something, I really wanted to read this in October, never got around to it, but sounds great. One of my favorites who I never read, I don't say I never read her, it's just that when I was probably in high school, I really started to get into her books, but like Stephen King, she, puts a book out like most of us go to the grocery store, like constantly, which she is Joyce Carol Oates. So, I just got to the point where like, can't keep up with you, Joyce, slow down. Try not to be so prolific. This one, Babysitter, is set in Detroit. In the waning days of the turbulent 1970s and the wake of unsolved child killings that have shocked Detroit, the lives of several residents are drawn together with tragic consequences. It's Joyce Carol Oates, it's always tragic. There's Hannah, wife of a prominent local businessman who has begun an affair with a darkly charismatic stranger whose identity remains elusive. Mikey, a canny street hustler who finds himself on a chilling mission to rectify injustice. And the serial killer known as Babysitter, an enigmatic and terrifying figure at the periphery of elite Detroit. As Babysitter continues his rampage of abductions and killings, these individuals intersect with one another in startling and unexpected ways. I think this sounds really chilling, really fascinating, creepy. There's a retro vibe that I'm getting from the whole thing. So I personally am excited about this. she seems to be getting a lot of heat, Joyce Carol Oates, lately because of the whole blonde thing. And I mean heat like her name is in the news more, not like heat like why did you write that book? Although maybe some people feel that way. Dani Shapiro's Signal Fires. I've never read any Dani Shapiro. A lot of people have said this is fantastic. Another small town tragedy involving, I think, a car accident. Kind of a pretty cover. Dinosaurs by Lydia Millet. I never read a children's Bible. I know a lot of people loved it, and we're very excited about this one. What drew me into this was A, the cover, B, it's short. I'm tired of it's the end of the year, y'all. I'm tired of the big tomes. So this is about a man who, after a breakup, I think he treks across the country, who walks from New York to Arizona after a failed love, and kind of sets up in a new town and the people in the town. And so it sounds interesting and good and, again, short. All right, I saw this at the bookstore the other day, and considering that today in America are the midterms and democracy is no joke at stake, but in light of everything leading up to these midterms, and more specifically because we're talking about books, the amount of school districts and politicians who are working to have books banned, which is so appalling to me, primarily because many of these people and parents strictly who are fighting for these book bans of books that I would wager a bet that most of these parents, and certainly not these politicians, have ever even picked up one of these books to actually look at the content, or furthermore, to know how critical it is for some of these books to be out there to reach kids who may not see someone like themselves, who may not know someone else that is experiencing the same things they're experiencing. I'm going to get off my soapbox now, but so I bought Genderqueer, and Genderqueer is one of the, probably in the group of all the books that have been banned, which, by the way, all are centered either around sexuality or race, because gay people and black people, you know, are the devil, apparently. But Genderqueer is one of the top 5 books that have been banned. It's an autobiographical it is graphic novel centered around Maia's intensely cathartic autobiography, charts air journey of self-identity, which includes the mortification and confusion of adolescence crushes, grappling with how to come out to family and society, bonding with friends over erotic gay fan fiction, and facing the trauma of pap smears. Started as a way to explain to Air family what it means to be non-binary and asexual, Genderqueer is more than a personal story. It is a useful and touching guide on gender identity, what it means and how to think about it for advocates, friends, and humans everywhere. So I saw this. I guess this is a special edition that was put out in hardback, but I just felt like I had to buy it. I had to support it. Because I didn't really know the book that well, and I'm certainly going to read it soon. Maybe this will be this will cut into my nonfiction November. But anyway, that's my soapbox. That's my political thing. Don't ban books, ban fascists. All right, this is crazy. I had wanted to read this book, and a few people that I know, like The Bar and the Bookcase, Jared over at The Bar and the Bookcase, he talked about how fantastic this was. Again, going to the short story thing, which is Stories from the Tenants Downstairs by Sidik Fofana. And so I'd wanted this. It's also on Scribd, which I belong to, on audio, and I thought, well, I'll just listen to it. And then the other day in my little free library, this was sitting there. I tell you, having a little free library is amazing because, first of all, I love putting stuff in there, and now I've had it long enough that the library is kind of doing its thing, and people are bringing books. And in the beginning, I just felt like I was, putting books, and they kept just going away. But now it's really doing its thing. And so every now and then I'll walk in and be like, oh my God, that's in there. And I will, first dibs. So, but it's they're all longtime tenants whose lives are entangled together in the ups and downs of the day-to-day, for better or for worse. The neighbors in the unit next door are friends or family, childhood rivals or enterprising business partners. In other words, Harlem is home, but the rent is due. In other words, not in other worlds. In other words, Harlem is home, but the rent is due, and the clock of gentrification, never far from anyone's mind, is ticking now louder than ever. So I think it looks great. I think it's a really cool cover, and I've heard nothing but great things. Lastly was a book that I just got from Celadon that looked interesting. I wanted to tell you about, called Locust Lane by Stephen Amidon, I'm going to say, or Amidon, but we're going to say Amidon. I'm going to read you the back of this. January 17th, this will be out. And what I plan to do is read it before then, and then I will stick it in my little free library. But for fans of Mystic River by Dennis Lehane, hi, big fan of Dennis Lehane and Mystic River, and Little Fires Everywhere by Celeste Ng, hello, big fan of that as well. Stephen Amidon's Locust Lane is a taut and utterly propulsive story about the search for justice and the fault lines of power and influence in a seemingly idyllic town. Can anyone be trusted? On the surface, Emerson, Massachusetts is just like any other affluent New England suburb. But when a young woman is found dead in the nicest part of town, the powerful neighbors close ranks to keep their families safe. In this searing novel, Eden Perry's death kicks off an investigation into the 3 teenagers who were partying with her that night, each a suspect. Hannah, a sweet girl with an unstable history. Jack, the popular kid with a mean streak. Christopher, an outsider desperate to fit in. Their parents, each with motivations of their own, only complicate the picture. They'll do anything to protect their children, even at the other's expense. With a brilliantly woven, intricately crafted plot that gathers momentum on every page, this is superb storytelling told in tense prose, a dynamic read that is both intensely gripping and deeply affecting. Ladies and gentlemen, I give you Locust Lane. So this sounds great, coming out January 17th. That is what I'm leaving you with today. I hope you're all having a fantastic day. I hope there were some things that you saw today that interested you, or at the very least, thanks for sticking around. As always, if you like what you see, like and subscribe, tell your friends, bring a family member, and I will see you all soon.